to deny this House of Representatives an opportunity for an up or down vote is an affront to the American people. It's an affront to this institution. It's an affront to democracy and every member in this House. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, reject this rule so we can have a vote on a clean resolution and fund our government going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas reserves.
Continue to reserve. Thank you, Mr.
From New
Speaker.
York is recognized. Gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Maloney.
The gentlelady from New York, Ms. Maloney, is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sad day for our Congress. Our colleagues across the aisle have chosen to pursue a pointless path of petty politics that will shut down the government of the most powerful nation on earth and damage the world's largest economy. And it is the height of irony that the extremists have taken control of the Republican agenda, speak of listening to the will of the people. The will of the people. The will of the people was to vote for the presidential candidate who promised to preserve the Affordable Care Act and to reject the presidential candidate who promised to repeal it on day one. The will of the people was to cast 1 million more votes for Democratic candidates for the House than for the Republican candidates. And the will of the people is to keep this government open and to vote on a clean CR that does not have a lot of stuff added to it unrelated to preserving our government and having our government function. Shutting down the government will raise borrowing costs, slow the recovery, and cause financial instability. Let's get a clean CR and vote for a clean CR.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield 1 minute to the former mayor of Corning, New York, the gentleman Congressman Tom Reed.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, what we have before us is an opportunity to send a message across America that there will be no special treatment in Washington, D.C. for members of Congress and Washington insiders. It is only fair that what we do is that we treat everyone equally under the law. That is what we're dealing with here today, Mr. Speaker. And what we are talking about is if the President of the United States has said to big business, you get a pass for 1 year under Obamacare. All we're saying is if it's good for big business, it's good for Americans, and that every individual in America should be treated the same. I'm asking my colleagues to join me. Don't vote to protect your own self-interest and this special contribution under Obamacare that members of Congress get. Treat us equally. Treat us the same. It is only fair that we keep this government open and we keep the law of the land intact for everyone equally. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, the Democrat leader, Ms. Pelosi.
The gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlelady for yielding and for her leadership on this very important issue. And what is that issue? Do we, as members of Congress, intend to honor our responsibilities to the American people by making tough choices to keep government open and working for the American people? Mr. Speaker, this weekend, in the dead of night, the Republican majority had a simple but clear choice to make. They could make a choice to accept Democrats saying yes to them on their budget number to proceed to the negotiating table to come up with a budget for our country, or they could choose in the dead of night to continue like hounds baying at the moon with once again, for like the 44th and 45th time, to try to overturn the Affordable Care Act. And what did they choose? And I say this with great apology to hounds because I love dogs. They chose to bay to the moon. It was a sad thing because so much is at stake. We should all, as members of Congress, have confidence in what we believe in and debate full throttle the issues that are important to our country and to our constituents. We shouldn't take hostages because of the weakness of our ideas. We should go confidently to the table of policy making to debate them. But to say we're going to shut down government unless you overturn the law of the land that has been upheld by the Supreme Court and validated by the last election, we are going to shut down the government. Now, the decision that they made the other night, baying night, they're continuing today, putting on the floor, attempting to put on the floor, a resolution that has no possibility of becoming the law. We as Democrats say, you have put forth two really unpleasant proposals. One, to overturn the Affordable Care Act, and the other, which in all of this discussion is hiding the terrible budget bill that they are putting forth, which even their own chairman says does not enable government to function, does not even enable us to do the job that we're here to do for the American people. Two no's do not make a yes. Two no's make matters worse. Democrats are absolutely, totally opposed and determined that we, God bless you, that we will not shut government down. We will not be party to shutting government down. And so we're willing to take your budget figure with the accompanying 6-week opportunity to go to the negotiating table and develop a bill that will get rid of sequestration and all the harm that that does to our national security and to our investments in the future. Take yes for an answer. This debate is about the budget. Keeping government open is about passing a bill, a continuing resolution to do that. Don't be insecure about your own ideas and say the only way we can prevail is if we threaten to shut government down if we don't have our own way. If we don't have our own way, we're going to shut government down. You and that attitude are a luxury this country cannot afford. Cannot afford. And so, again, I say, this is an explicit offer to the Republicans in the Congress to agree to your number in this legislation and take the next weeks ahead to come to the table and negotiate. Something we should have done 6 months ago. In March, the Republicans said they wanted regular order. Regular order means you pass a House and a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate, and you go to conference. At least that's what the book says. That's what regular order is. The Republicans wanted regular order. That's what they told the President of the United States in the Oval Office. How would you like to proceed? The President said, we want regular order, said Mr. Boehner and Mr. Speaker Boehner and Leader McConnell. The House passed its budget bill. Republicans started saying things like no budget, no pay to the Senate, the taunt. The Senate had planned to and did pass its budget bill. That would be the regular order. Now we go to the table to reconcile our differences. The minute the Senate passed its bill, the Republicans abandoned any interest in the regular order. Why? Maybe they were afraid that people would see the contrast of what they wanted to do in their budget compared to the investment in the future, the statement of our national values that our Democratic proposal had under Chairwoman Patty Murray in the Senate and Chris Van Hollen in the House. Whatever the reason, for 6 months they have not wanted to negotiate. And for 6 months they're saying the President doesn't want to negotiate. But they are the ones who have the responsibility under the regular order of the House to come to the budget table to reconcile our differences. I salute the President for saying that the full faith and credit of the United States is not negotiable. We will not default on the debts that we have all incurred already. So that is over here. So when he says that's not negotiable, that doesn't mean that we won't negotiate on the budget, which is in the form of a continuing resolution, a separate issue. So you could only conclude that insecure because of the poverty of the ideas, or just determined to shut down government, maybe because they don't fully understand the consequences of it, the Republicans have once again come to the floor with a bill which they know will shut down government 5.5 hours from now. 5.5 hours from now. We either bay to the moon again, or we'll make the right decision to take yes for an answer. We agree to your number for the purpose of going to the negotiating table. That's a big, our number is what we agreed to with you in the Budget Control Act, bipartisan agreement, $1.58 trillion versus $986. It's an $80 billion come down. That number was a compromise to begin with. That wasn't like flush with spending. It was a compromise to begin with, and now we are underfunding government, and that's not good enough for you to underfund and meeting the needs of the American people. You want to shut down government. So I would hope that all who think that this is not a good idea will express themselves on the rule, because the rule does not allow us to have a vote, a clean vote, on your suggestion for a continuing resolution at 986. Let's give the Republicans a vote on their number. Let's give the Republicans a vote on their proposal, and let's do it in a way that is clean and does not place in doubt whether government will be open in the morning to meet the needs of the American people. I hope that in the previous question that enough people will reject what the Republicans are putting forth, and certainly on the rule we can do that. Otherwise, we'll go to time and time again, 46 times to vote against undermining the Affordable Care Act. Instead, we could have passed an immigration bill. We could have passed a bill to make sure we have background checks for people who want to who are legally able to purchase guns, to make sure that they are. We could have, God willing, we could have passed legislation creating jobs, investing in the future for our country. But all of those things can be the legitimate, not all, but the stuff about the job initiatives and investing in the future are the legitimate debate of priorities that is the budget debate. And that's what I hope that the Republicans will allow. Something they asked for, the regular order. Something they asked for, 986 in the bill. Something I think we all want, keeping government open. With that, I urge a no vote on the rule and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and I thank the distinguished gentlewoman from California not only for coming down but for her kind words about many common sense things. I think she also knows that this bill that's before us tonight is not to shut down the government. I come from a family that the former Speaker has known for a long, long time. She knows a lot about me. I'm a part of this bill. I was taught by my father, yes, but also others, that you stay at the table until you get something done. It may be a little bit late at night. It may take a little bit of hard work. It may take some creative thinking. And then the athlete in me says, you run through the tape. As a track guy, I always ran through the tape. As a football guy, I ran till the clock went out. I think what the Republican Party is here trying to say is we're here at work, we're going to get our work done, we're challenging the United States Senate to do the same. And we are going to pass this bill tonight because it's the right thing to do, and we'll stay open tonight, and we'll receive there in ping-pong terms, the ping and the pong, back and forth, and we'll be ready. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you'll stay on duty. You may drink a couple cups of coffee, but you're doing the right thing for the people of Johnson County, Kansas. And I know where you're from, and I know what kind of man you are. I'd also like to introduce and yield to the gentleman from Wausau, Wisconsin. 2 minutes to the gentleman, Mr. Duffy.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now listen, I've been in this institution for 2.5 years, and the majority or the minority leader from the other side of the aisle, she talked about hounds. I have heard a lot of howling from the other side of the aisle, howling about fairness and howling about equality. Well, talk is cheap, because today you have an opportunity to live and vote fairness and equality. Because for months, big business has come to this town and they have asked for an employer exemption, an exemption from the employer mandate. And all we're doing tonight is saying let's treat individuals in America the same way you're treating big business. They may not have as much money or as powerful lobbies, but they have us fighting for them. Join us so we can treat individuals like the big businesses that you've given the exemption. Listen, the President talks about how great Obamacare is, but we have to note that he's excluded his administration. The press secretary, Mr. Carney, he gets up often and talks about how great this bill is. If it is so great, what we do tonight is we allow the administration, like us in Congress, to come into Obamacare, and we remove the exemption from us, or the subsidy from us and from the administration. Let's treat Congress with the same equality and the administration as the same equality as the American people, and let's treat the American people the same way you're treating big businesses in America. This is easy. Walk the walk, don't just give us the talk. Let's vote for this rule, and let's pass this bill tonight. I yield back.
Gentleman from Wisconsin yields back. The gentlelady from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, a member of the Committee on Appropriations, Mr. Farr.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, bring us some leadership. There is only one issue before the United States Congress, and that's the issue to keep government open. And the bill to do that is in this House. The bill to keep the government open is in this House, and if it were on the floor, we'd pass it in 1 minute. He would go to the President and he'd have it signed before he went to bed. That's all we have to do. But this rule brings all kinds of other baggage and says, no, we don't want to keep government open. We want to get into other issues. Well, aren't all the other issues what we're about for all the other part of the year? This is the only day and the only moment when we can keep government open. It's the last chance. And they say, oh, you know what? Well, you know, this is a partisan thing. I heard the chairman say, you know, it was a mistake to pass. The president made a mistake. That's what you said. Well, we thought President Bush made a mistake in invading Iraq. And in fact, the majority of Democrats fought against it, argued against it, and voted against it. But when we went to Iraq, we didn't try to stop the whole Congress, to block the budget. No. In fact, on the appropriations to pay for it, the Democrats voted for it. We admitted. We lost. You lost on the Obamacare, whatever else you want to call it. It's the law. Supreme Court's declared it. If you want to deal with other issues, put it in other bills. But don't attach it to this bill. Reject this rule that brings the baggage. Bring the clean bill. Let's pass it in the next hour, and Mr. President, have it signed by midnight. And let's keep this government open. It does so much damage otherwise. So many kids, so many women, so many poor people really get hurt. This is not leadership. This is meanness.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I reserve my time. I'd like to advise the gentlewoman I have no further speakers, and I'll wait for her to run through her time in closing, and I will do the same.
The gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentlelady from New York
Mr.
is recognized.
Speaker, I have one further speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
We're told that if we want the government to stay open for just another 45 or 75 days, we should torpedo the Affordable Care Act. Then what happens in November or December? Are we told that to keep the government open any further, we have to strip mine Yellowstone? We have to abolish Medicare? The fact is, it is wrong to take hostages. It is wrong to say that the government will shut down if that is the only way that you can achieve your legislative objectives. What would the country think of us if we said we're going to shut down the government unless we get gay rights, gun control, cap and trade, immigration reform? Or what would the country think of us if we said gay rights but only for 1 year? Keep the government open for 1 year, get gay rights for 1 year. Taking hostages is wrong. Holding hostage the greatest country in the world is wrong. I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Steve Lynch.
Gentlelady from New York.
I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 1 minute.
Anybody else comes in?
I thank the gentlelady for yielding. You know, I had a chance earlier today, because we're not doing a whole lot other than arguing for the last few days, to run up the mall and go for a little jog. I went by the Washington Monument, the World War II Memorial, ran all the way out to Arlington, where the Iwo Jima Memorial is. And I got to thinking about all the great people in this country who have built this government and invested so much, sacrificing their very lives to preserve this government and to elevate it to a point where it is respected around the world. And I thought about the debate that's going on here today. We should not be disgracing their memory. All of those people, from Jefferson to FDR and others, by dissolving this government, by defunding it and allowing it to fail. We owe the American people better than that. There's a solution here. Hey, look, I didn't vote for the Affordable Care Act either. I thought it was a flawed bill. But that's a different argument about how to make that work best for the American people. And we're failing the American people by allowing this government to shut down. It's a terrible precedent to set. It's disgraceful, and the American people deserve better. I yield back.
From New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, if my colleague has no further requests for time, I'm prepared to close.
That would be correct, and I thank the gentlewoman.
Thank you.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, today is a truly shameful day in the distinguished history of this House. Far from the noble mission that some of the other side may claim, what is before us is an extreme and extremely cynical attempt to extract a ransom from the American people. They've issued their demands while knowing full well they will not be met. Yet they are taking another step toward a government shutdown in order to deny 30 million uninsured Americans health care. The time has run out. We are down to our last chance, and I urge my colleagues to vote no on today's rule, the underlying legislation, and ask once more that we be given the opportunity to vote on the Senate bill, a clean bill that can go directly to the President, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. The gentleman from Texas is recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're here tonight because the Republican Party recognizes that men and women of this country are worried about their future. Worried about economics. They're worried about taking care of their family. We've seen food prices double since the President has been our President. We've seen energy prices double. We've seen more rules and regulations. We've seen the war on coal. We've seen all sorts of things that have taken place. But taking over your health care is a pretty serious matter. And we disagreed with it then, but we tried to work with the President. We've had 7 or 8 bills that actually did work, where the President recognized that there were fraudulent parts of the bill that needed to be taken advantage of, and we got rid of those. Tonight we're here to say fairness. We're about to say fairness. You should not give one group of people one thing and not to the others. Likewise, we believe the President of the United States and his administration should be in the exact same health care that members of Congress are in. So I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and yes on the underlying legislation. Best of all, I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question.
All time having expired. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it.
The yeas and the nays, Mr. Speaker.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the House resolution if ordered and motion to suspend the rules on Senate 1348 if ordered. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Fiscal year 2013 is over in just over 5 hours, and the House once again is trying to figure out how to keep the government funded past midnight tonight through November 15th or December 15th, depending on the legislation of the last week or so. This is the previous question vote, the vote on the rule for 2 changes to H.R. 59, the original continuing resolution. And we will see that rule vote coming up next. If that rule vote, if the rule carries, there will be an additional 40 minutes of debate ahead. We want to once again open up our phone lines and hear from you on the federal funding debate that's been going on today and throughout the weekend, the last week or so in Congress. If you're a Democrat, the line to use is 202-585-3885 for Republicans, 202-585-3886, and for all others, 202-585-3887. We'll check the Facebook page. We've posted several things there over the last couple of days, facebook.com/C-SPAN, and also the hashtag we've been using is C-SPAN chat. We'll read a number of tweets. It is a 15-minute vote. 2 5-minute votes will follow. One of those will be the rule vote. Joining us during this 15-minute vote is Stephen Dennis, who is with Roll Call. He's their White House correspondent. He's also leadership editor with Roll Call, joining us from Capitol Hill as the vote is underway. Stephen Dennis, the Republicans again proposing new changes to the continuing resolution. What are they asking for this time?
Well, this time they want to delay the individual mandate by a year. Keep in mind the President already delayed the employer mandate, saying that it basically wasn't ready to be enforced. And they also want to basically get rid of the employer contribution for members of Congress and their staffs in the Obamacare exchanges that they've already been subjected to and will have to enter into like other Americans. And they also want the President to be in those exchanges. So that's an amendment that is going to be very soundly rejected. Both of those things will be soundly rejected in the Senate. They're basically non-starters. And you can expect what they're voting on now is either going to be dead on the rule or it's going to be rejected in the Senate pretty quickly, or as soon as Reid can get the bill and get his members together, and it'll be right back over in the House again. And that'll be the next decision point for Speaker Boehner. There certainly are a number of moderates who are starting to balk at the potential for a shutdown tonight. There's a question of whether some of them might vote against this rule. There's also a question of whether House Republicans can keep some of their conservatives on board with a bill that goes a little bit further than many of them wanted to go, because it doesn't really defund Obamacare. It's not nearly as strong as a lot of conservatives want. So they might be able to keep them together on this package, but if the Republicans try to have even weaker tea the next time around, it'll be very hard for them to keep their party united.
Is there any sort of reliable whip counting, et cetera? You mentioned a group of moderates and possibly also conservatives not happy for different reasons entirely. So as we head into this 15-minute vote and then into the rule vote, any sort of sense of numbers?
No, I think it's still very fluid, and you know, members are going to have to make these decisions right up to the deadline. You might actually see some whipping on the floor as we head into this vote. And part of the problem here for House Republicans is this is a game of hot potato, and the Senate has shown that they're just going to take that hot potato and throw it right back to them. And so it's not just about this vote, it's about the next vote. The one good thing I think Republicans look at from today is they're able to say, look, we've gotten these Democrats, vulnerable Democrats in many places, to take tough votes. You know, they can run ads against them next year saying they voted to save their own health care benefits or to save the health care benefits of their staff or to keep the individual mandate, which is pretty unpopular in polling. And so even if they don't succeed in getting the president to roll back his health care plan, they're building up in their minds, they think they're building up some political chits that they can use next year.
Stephen Dennis joining us from Capitol Hill, right off the House floor where the votes are happening now, this previous question vote, and we're going to be joined by Stephen Dennis throughout this vote, so let's go to our phone calls. Beatrice is in Dothan, Alabama. She's on our Democrats line. Beatrice, you there? Alabama, hello. One more time. Let's go now to Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Don on a Republican line.
Yes, I was just going to say that if people have mortgages and they need to be paid, I would say that anyone that doesn't pass the bill to continue the resolution, I would say that everyone should copy their mortgage and send it to all the senators that do not want to pass the bill, because the House has passed many bills to continue the budget and the resolution, and it's the Senate has been voting no. Whoever votes no should get from their state a copy of their mortgage for them to pay it.
Well, the thing is that the Senate has passed a continuing resolution. Both House and Senate have passed versions of a continuing resolution. They're just different. You know, and how a bill becomes a law is they have to agree. The Senate basically said, look, we'll take the House's spending level, even though we don't like it. The Democrats wanted to spend $1.058 trillion. That's what was called for in the 2011 Budget Control Act, would have gotten rid of the sequester. That's what the Democrats really want. But they kept the House's number. It keeps the sequester in place at $986 billion. The Senate said basically, look, we'll agree to your number for 6 weeks, and we'll talk it out for the rest of the year, but we're not going to take any of these riders. We're not going to take anything on Obamacare. We're not going to take anything additional. We're just going to agree to basically the status quo for 6 more weeks while we negotiate the rest of the budget. And the way the Democrats look at this is, if they start giving concessions now on just a 6-week bill, or, you know, who knows, by the end of tonight it could be a 2-week bill or a 3-week bill. If they start giving concessions now on such a short bill, they've got the debt ceiling in a couple of weeks. They've got to, they've got to negotiate the rest of the year. They don't want to get in the habit of giving in to what they consider to be extortion.
Bob's in Eastchester, New York. He's on our others line. Hi, Bob.
Hello. My feeling is that the main problem with all of this nonsense is that these people are allowed to run for re-election. You know, if they didn't have to run for re-election, maybe we'd get something done in this country. You know, sometimes I think that we're better off to have Congress like the jury system. People are selected to go and serve for 6 years and then go home. These people should just all resign.
Stephen Dennis, are you hearing concerns from members about the 2014 elections? Is this an issue they think will come up to either help them or haunt them?
I think absolutely. I think one of the reasons why you're seeing at least the beginnings of a moderate revolt in the House is they are worried that if the government shuts down, they'll lose their seats. These moderates tend to be in states like Pennsylvania or New York, states where Democrats are strong, blue states, and government shutdowns tend to not be too popular. But keep in mind, because of gerrymandering and redistricting, most Republicans and most Democrats in the House are in pretty safe seats. They don't think they're going to lose their seats. over a government shutdown. And the reality is there's a very different views of who would actually win a shutdown fight with the public. The Republicans are convinced that the public hates Obamacare so much that they will blame the Democrats for not giving in an inch on Obamacare, and the Democrats are even more convinced, if anything, that they'll win because they can say, look, you had your shot last year. Mitt Romney ran on repealing Obamacare. He lost. The president won re-election, and that's that. And they can also point to Speaker John Boehner's statements in the past saying Obamacare is the law of the land. And even House Republican leaders a few weeks ago, their plan was basically to let a clean CR be signed by the president as long as the Senate voted on a few sidecar items and voted them down. They had to change their tune after a conservative revolt. So basically, this is this is hardcore politics. This is this is democracy. That's what we all signed up for, and I think we're going to find out from the public pretty darn quick in the next few days if this shutdown actually comes to pass. I think there's still plenty of chances tonight for some kind of deal to be reached. Keep in mind, in 2011, the deal was reached after 11 o'clock in the Senate, and the House actually voted after midnight. So there's still a chance to get something done tonight, but the time is starting to get pretty short.
Coming up on 5 hours till midnight and the end of the fiscal year, this is the first of 3 votes on the House floor. They'll vote on the rule for the consideration of the 2 changes Republicans are proposing to the continuing resolution. The one change, again, delaying that individual mandate. The other would block or end the subsidies for members of Congress. This is the previous question vote. And just if you're watching the tally, as of today, there are a total of 432 members of the House due to vacancies and resignations. 432. That's 232 Republicans, 200 Democrats, and that would mean that for the rule to carry in the next vote, they need 217 to pass that rule next. Back to your calls. Shirley is in Elizabethton, Tennessee. Hi, Shirley. She's on our Democrats line.
Hi there. I just wanted to say that this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. The Republicans cannot win anything with letting the 60 Tea Party people try to run the entire country. And we don't forget things like the last time with the debt ceiling. Who did that? Who's brought this to the brink? And as Nancy Pelosi just said, we have agreed to give them what they want, which is still keeping the sequester that is hurting the job market immeasurably. We can't even get brought to the floor in any capacity a jobs bill. All they want to do is destruction, and they are not going to profit by it for Republicans or anywhere else. Those few states that the Tea Partiers are voting in, if they don't wake up and realize what they're doing to this country, they're going to absolutely put us into a depression it's going to be incredibly difficult to ever recover from.
Stephen Dennis, you're the White House reporter for Roll Call. What did we hear from the president in terms of what he said the impact of the shutdown might be? What are some of those top-line figures?
Well, I think what the president pointed out is that the government's the biggest employer in the country, and hundreds of thousands of workers are going to be home tomorrow without getting paid, and hundreds of thousands of others will be going to work without guaranteed that they're going to get a paycheck. Those essential employees versus the ones who are told to go home. And if they aren't paid, they don't put that money into the economy, and you end up hurting the economy. That's the president's message. A lot of the essential items, things like the military will still guard their posts. They're still going to be fighting in Afghanistan, etc. And they did pass this military pay bill so that at least the soldiers will get paid. But there is a that there is an impact here. And there's even an impact even if there isn't a shutdown at this point, given that hundreds of thousands of federal workers spent today preparing for a shutdown rather than doing what they normally do. All the managers are trying to figure out who comes to work tomorrow and who doesn't, and it really depends on which agency. Some agencies, 3 people are showing up out of thousands. Others, like the FBI agents, will generally show up because they're considered essential.
Back to the politics of the moment. Here's Peter King, a tweet from Huffington Post, and I think this news may have come out earlier. Peter King of New York tweeting that Huffington Post politics, saying that Peter King says 25 Republicans may vote against taking up the spending bill with the Obamacare provision. Let's hear, and we'll see in a minute, that vote, that rule vote coming up next. Next to Dave in Philadelphia on our independent line.
Hey, my name is Dave. I'm absolutely in tears right now because I'm not worried about the shutdown. I'm on disability. I'm scared about the debt ceiling. If they're going to do that with this, I'm scared. Should I prepare to go to a mental hospital? Because I'm that scared.
We'll move on to Farmers, Kentucky. Frank's on the Democrats line. Hi, Frank.
Hi, sir. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Just had a couple of comments. I'm 78 years old, soon be 79. I'm a retired iron worker. I put in 30 active years. I've been a member of the Iron Workers Union for 45 years. I have got good insurance. I don't want my insurance messed with. I am a Democrat. And this is a do-nothing Congress. This will never be a government for the people until no lobbyists, no special interest groups are even allowed to approach Capitol Hill. And this used to be the greatest country in the world. Now we're a laughingstock. That's all I got to say, sir.
Thank you, Frank. Stephen Dennis, what have we seen of in terms of interest groups and lobbying groups on Capitol Hill around the issue of the continuing resolution?
Well, the business community is sending a message loud and clear, which is don't shut down the government and don't even think about defaulting on the debt. That's the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, hundreds of other business groups sending letters, multiple letters in the last week saying, look, keep the government open. Their members, the business community, does not want to shut down. They don't like this strategy, frankly, of threatening a shutdown over Obamacare. But, that's not the folks that are really driving the Republican Party right now. The base of the Republican Party wants a big fight over Obamacare defunding. They don't understand why they control the House of Representatives. They were elected to, and why they have to put in more spending for a priority of the president's and one that their members want repealed. So this is, a very difficult position that Speaker Boehner's in. But keep in mind, he's been in this position now for over 2 years. He's been the Speaker for over 2 years. They've passed spending bills again and again and again. It's the one thing they've actually been able to get done on a regular basis is to keep the government open. And in the past, Boehner has resisted calls to defund Obamacare or to do other kinds of things like this on spending bills because he has considered a government shutdown to be bad for his party and the country. Now, it'll be interesting to see when the clock strikes midnight. I know the Speaker has said he will not do a clean CR. It'll be interesting to see if he sort of takes it right up to midnight and says, we're going over. And once you actually shut the government down, it seems like at that point it'll be even harder to compromise, because then you're committed.
Well, there's under 100 votes left. We will take a few more of your phone calls with Stephen Dennis joining us from Capitol Hill and some updates from the floor. Chad Pergram of Fox is tweeting that Speaker Boehner and President Obama spoke by phone about the shutdown for 10 minutes. He says no breakthrough. And Casey Hunt is tweeting that the Speaker has been on the floor meeting with Representative King and others, some of those moderates that have been mentioned that possibly might vote against the rule, and that rule vote is coming up next. Texarkana, Texas, to Mike. Good evening. He's on our Independence line.
Yeah, partner, thank you for taking my call. I have just a quick points. I think they're litigating or voting on the what I understand is the bidder rule that all the government employees should be treated equally as the working class citizen. I agree with that, and I should take it further. Instead of when you retire as a congressman or senator on your full salary, let me repeat that. They don't pay Social Security. They're not Medicare, Medicaid doesn't apply to them. So let's just carry on. If they want to be fair to all the American people, go ahead and be fair. You don't get your total salary when you retire. You go on Social Security and what savings you have, just like every other American. This is the most ludicrous piece of hypocrisy I have ever seen. I'm 63 years old.
All right, Mike, we'll let Stephen Dennis get the last word there on the Vitter Amendment and the impact of that.
Well, absolutely. I think that it's the kind of thing that touches the chord with the American people when they see members of Congress getting benefits that they don't have. And one of those has been health benefits. I mean, the members of Congress get great health benefits. Are they put into the exchanges? Yes. Would they keep their health benefits as it is now, the way the rules are? Yes. And the argument from the Republicans is look, if you are an employee at a business and the business says, sorry, I'm dropping your health care coverage, go on the exchange, well, then you don't get an employer subsidy. You might get a tax credit if you don't earn that much money, or you're you're not earning certainly a congressman's salary. But if you're making $174,000 a year, like members of Congress do, you wouldn't get that tax credit. So there's certainly arguments on both sides. The Democrats say, look, most people in America get insurance through their employer, get an employer subsidy, and they and their staff deserve that same subsidy that other Americans get. So it's certainly a politically very dicey thing. Certainly another thing that's come up in this CR fight was an issue with Frank Lautenberg's widow getting $174,000 payment as part of a line item in this CR, even though he was the 8th richest member of Congress in the roll call top 50. He was worth something in the order of $57 million as a minimum, and yet he's still going to get that check.
And Stephen Dennis will wrap it here as the vote here is wrapping. Thanks so much, Stephen Dennis of Roll Call. Read his reporting at rollcall.com, and you can follow him on Twitter as well. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
And again, the House wrapping up this previous question vote. They'll vote on the rule next. That's the two changes, the two proposed changes to the continuing resolution. One, delaying the individual mandate implementation, and the other, as you just heard Stephen Dennis talk about, the stripping away of that subsidy for members of Congress. Live coverage of the House here on C-SPAN and C-SPAN Radio.
Vote. The yeas are 229. The nays are 198. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The resolution is adopted.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
Earlier today, the Senate voted 54 to 56, effectively blocking the changes that the House had made Saturday night to the continuing resolution. Those changes that were blocked, the 1-year delay of the health care law and ending the medical devices tax. That kicked it back to the House. The Rules Committee met today and offered 2 new changes to the continuing resolution. One would be a 1-year delay of the individual mandate, which is set to go into effect tomorrow, and the other would strip out subsidies for members of Congress. This is a 5-minute vote on the rule for that debate, and the rule would there'd be 40 minutes of general debate if they pass. Here are the numbers in the House right now: 432. That's due to a couple of vacancies. 432 total. That's 232 Republicans, 200 Democrats, and they'll need 217 to carry the rule. So let's watch.
On this vote, the yeas are 225, the nays are 204. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is the question on suspending the rules and passing S. 1348, which the clerk will report by title.
Senate 1348, an act to reauthorize the Congressional Award Act.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? So many as are in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The gentlelady from New York.
I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
It appeared that 5 or 6 Republicans joined Democrats in voting against the rule, but the rule carries on the continuing resolution, the proposed Republican changes to the continuing resolution, and there'll be 40 minutes of debate ahead on those 2 proposed changes, one delaying the implementation of the individual mandate of the health care law a year, and the second would be stripping away language on the subsidies for congressmen and their staff, for members of Congress and their staff. Final 5-minute vote in this series. This one's on a bill debated last week. The Congressional Awards Program recognizes excellence in public service in people between the ages of 14 and 23. Debate ahead on the continuing resolution here on C-SPAN. Moments ago, the House voted 225 to 204 to approve the rule for debate for 2 proposed changes to the continuing resolution. We expect that debate ahead. Daniel Newhouser, reporter with CQ Roll Call, says those Republicans voting no against the rule were Michelle Bachmann, Paul Brown, Charles Dent of Pennsylvania, Louis Gohmert, Steve King of New York, and Peter King of New York and Steve King of Iowa, voting no on the rule, as did all Democrats in that last vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 387, the nays are 35, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 367,